Now we want to create the storyboard and the rough and ready prototype. So in this we're going to be drawing out all the UI, looking at the most important parts of the flow, and basically create something that we could actually test with real people. And we're going to come to the testing part towards the end of this session. Now let's go and make an actual rough and ready prototype. So now we're looking at creating a rough and ready prototype and looking at the storyboard and flow. For this we're going to need some art equipment. If you've got stickies or like paper, pens, anything that you can use to actually draw really simple UI. So also some felt tips, some Sharpies will be really good as well, so you can actually color buttons and make them quite distinct. So what we're going to do is create the basic UI and a rough and ready prototype. So if you've never seen a rough and ready prototype, basically what that is a prototype made from paper that you're actually going to use in a real test. So the first thing we're going to look at is step 0. So if you remember the flow that we're actually working on. So a user opens the app. I've also created a template of an actual phone that we're going to use as the basis. So this is the device. So when you're setting up a test, you're just setting up the user that you're testing with to say, look, this is the device, this is the first step, we're going to run through a flow. And then slowly but surely you start presenting different UI, and as they tap different parts of it, you can change the screens as we continue. So the next step will be obviously step 1. So user selects their location. If you remember this in the flow. So what I've designed here is a basic map. You can see it says coffee on the go. This I've just done like a little characters where you are. You can just roughly see the map here. Have a little coffee pods. I imagine it's like coffee people on the go. So you can actually look at the closest coffee delivery people around you. What we've done is, because when we're making a rough and ready prototype, we want someone to actually follow through. So I'm presenting this to a person. I say, okay, do something. And then I just follow them. So I've made the destination input here like quite interactive looking. So a person will press that. And then I add the next bit of UI. So this is like current location and home. Obviously current location is much more active, and it's colourful, so it's indicating that the person just tapped this next. So we tap current location. So now a user's tapped current location. What's the next step? Well, the user will have to choose their coffee. So I'm just going to put this, so if I just move this UI from the screen, and now we have the coffee menu. So you can just about see it here. I've made it really light on purpose. This says continue because we want someone to actually add a coffee item first. We've got cappuccino and latte and a back menu here. So if someone wants to go back to and change where their location is, then they can just tap here. These two look very interactive. So let's say I press cappuccino. I can't continue because nothing is selected. So if I press that, then I'll update the UI like that. So you can see one item's been added to my cart, and then I'll flip over and you can see the continue button like that. So as someone's actually following through, you're changing the UI and you're actually trying to see if the affordances that we spoke about earlier work. So again, we're actually really highlighting the elements that we want the person to actually follow through on. Then we go on to the next step. Step 3, we want the user to customize. So I'm just going to remove this UI. So someone's pressed continue, and now they can actually customize their coffee. So we have sugar, vanilla, and a few other items. I just wanted to see what other things that we could add. Also, I've added like a delete button here, because you may want to actually remove an item. But for the sake of this prototype, we're not going to do that. But I just wanted the UI there so I can think about the affordances. So I don't want to add sugar, I don't want to add any vanilla, I just want to press buy now. Now, thinking retrospectively, the fact that buy now, I'm not really sure if that really works here, because the next step is our payments, or choosing our payment method. So maybe we should really update that to payment methods later on. But once I get into Sketch and the actual graphics application, that's when I'll actually do that there. So now, step 4 will be choose the payment method. And then we actually have new UI updating. So a person's chose their coffee, their cappuccino. They haven't added anything custom to it, but what we do have now is like a list of payment methods. Do I want to use MasterCard, Visa? I might want to pay in cash. That's like a possibility. I was just thinking aloud the features. You might want to add new cards, but for the sake of this paper prototype, I didn't want to highlight these elements at all. I wanted to just highlight the choice of the credit cards, because if I'm testing this with someone, I don't want them to go off on this prototype. Remember, like the goal that we set in the beginning is we want someone to go through a payment method really quickly. So we might actually set up another challenge and another design prototype just looking at payment methods, because that's like a flow within itself. But for now, we're just thinking about a specific one, and in this case, MasterCard. As you can see, the continue button is not highlighted here because we haven't selected payment method, so we can't allow the user to continue until they've actually chosen something. So we choose that radio button, it is now active, and now, as a result, our continue button works. So when you're actually getting the user to follow this through and actually go through this, you're actually making the thing interactive. You're making the prototype as real as possible, and then you're following to see if they're actually doing things. And again, you're focusing on the main UI, the main key features, so that a person can continue on in the next steps. We have 2 more steps. Step 5, which is basically our order review. So here you see cappuccino, no sugar, an edit button if you want to change it, the MasterCard payment method, again another edit button, the total $3, the order review title with a back button, we've had that throughout, and buy now. So we press buy now, and then we have the final step, which is step 6, and the confirmation. Again, going back to what we were talking about, feedback. We want to make sure that we reaffirm to the user and reassure them that something's actually happened. Again, we could possibly do some more here. Maybe we can see track the order. I've written order again as a button, but it's not that really prominent because remember the goal was to get someone through the payment method of ordering something. So this is a paper prototype. You can actually use this to test with real people. So you can show them the device, you ask them to follow through the actual flow, and then as they press buttons, you can change the screens, and then also get them to speak aloud what they're thinking. So if they see a button, to get them to say, right now I see a buy now button, I'm going to press a buy now button, etc, etc. It's a bit weird to begin with, but it allows you to hear what they're thinking. So this is great for just like your own sanity when designing something, seeing the flow, and it's also great for actually creating a prototype that you can use and test with real people. So to summarize, when creating a storyboard, what you want to do is you want to draw some really simple sketches for every step of the flow that we've written on stickies. You want to make a rough and ready prototype to test your flow, preferably with real people, but it's always good to just do it for your own sanity so you can actually see if a flow actually makes logical sense. And you haven't committed to using a design application, so it's easy to just move things around. And finally, if you're testing with a real person, get them to speak aloud what they see. So if you're seeing the map interface which I showed you, to say, okay, what do you see? What do you think you need to do next? And then as they're pressing the buttons and you're moving and changing the screens, you can actually hear what they're thinking aloud. So I really recommend rough and ready prototypes, even just for yourself, but preferably when you test with real people as well.